What happens when the guardians of peace become the purveyors of fear? When the uniform designed to inspire trust is twisted into a symbol of oppression? And what if the target of that oppression, a woman left bruised on a lonely roadside, carried a truth more explosive than any weapon, a secret poised to unravel a darkness coiled deep within the heart of American justice? This is the story of Dr. Alana Wright, and the night a racist cop picked the wrong woman to victimize. The Michigan air, sharp with the late October chill, bit at any exposed skin, a prelude to the brutal winter Cedar Grove was known for. Dr. Alana Wright, 36, known in certain circles by call signs and code words, but here, in this sleepy, deceptively placid town as a visiting sociology researcher from a prestigious East Coast university, felt the cold seep into her rented sedan. The dashboard clock glowed 11:57 p.m. She was returning from a late observation session, part of her meticulously crafted cover studying community policing initiatives in small-town America. The irony, a bitter taste in her mouth, was never lost on her. The red and blue lights exploded in her rearview mirror with sudden, heart-stopping violence, painting the barren stretch of County Road 12 in garish, pulsating strokes. Alana's breath hitched, a purely human reaction quickly suppressed. Her CIA training, a relentless drill of composure and tactical awareness, surged to the forefront. She checked her speed, exactly 45 miles per hour, the posted limit. No broken taillight. No erratic driving. This was not a random stop. She pulled over smoothly, engine idling, hands placed visibly on the steering wheel at 10 and 2. The officer took his time, the beam of his flashlight playing over her back seat, her trunk, before finally fixing on her. He was a silhouette against his own blinding headlights, a deliberate tactic of intimidation. When he finally reached her window, his face emerged from the shadows. Officer Derek Slate. Mid-40s, a beefy, florid face, eyes like chips of ice. His reputation, meticulously detailed in the preliminary intelligence reports Alana had devoured, preceded him, a bully with a badge, particularly notorious for his treatment of black motorists. He was a low-level infection in the Cedar Grove Police Department. One Alana's larger mission was designed to understand and, if necessary, excise. Tonight, the infection was coming to her. License and registration. Slate's voice was a gravelly bark, devoid of any professional courtesy. Alana complied, her movements measured. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked, her tone calm, neutral. The kind of voice that de-escalated, that sought understanding. He snatched the documents. His flashlight beam lingered on her face, then her hair, styled in neat locks. A sneer tugged at his lips. "Problem is you're out mighty late, ain't ya? In this part of town. I'm a visiting researcher at the university." "I was working late," Alana explained, keeping her voice even, betraying none of the cold fury coiling in her stomach. This was the script, the one played out on countless roadsides, under countless indifferent stars. "Researcher, huh?" He scoffed, handing back her license but keeping the registration. "Step out of the car, ma'am." "Officer, could you please tell me why I'm being asked to exit my vehicle? Have I violated any law?" Alana's training emphasized asserting rights, but carefully, always gauging the subject's volatility. Slate was a powder keg. His eyes narrowed. "I don't like your tone. You got something to hide? Step out. Now." The ma'am was gone, replaced by raw command. Alana knew this moment. The precipice. Comply and endure, or question and provoke. Her mission parameters were clear: observe, infiltrate, do not engage unless compromised. But this felt different. The ghost of her brother, Jamal, flickered at the edge of her vision. She took a breath, unbuckled her seatbelt, and slowly opened the door. The cold air hit her fully now. As she stood, Slate was already crowding her, his presence overwhelmingly aggressive. "Turn around." Hands on the hood. "Officer, I haven't done anything wrong. This is uncalled for." Her voice, though still controlled, now carried a tremor of indignation she didn't try to hide. It was for Jamal. It was for every black body unjustly targeted. That was all the provocation Slate needed. With a sudden, brutal shove, he slammed her face first against the car's cold hood. The impact sent a shockwave of pain through her jaw and cheekbone. Stars exploded behind her eyelids. Her glasses skittered away into the darkness. "You think you're special?" Slate snarled, his breath hot and rank on her neck as he roughly patted her down. "Just another troublemaker," mouthing off. In the violent motion of being slammed, the small, discreetly pinned CIA shield inside her winter coat, a last resort identifier she rarely carried on domestic assignments but had for this deep cover operation, dislodged. It clinked softly as it hit the asphalt near her feet, glinting faintly in the distant streetlight. Slate, in his thuggish haste, either didn't see it or didn't care. His focus was on dominance, on the assertion of his petty power. He found nothing, of course. No weapons, no drugs. Just a woman. He yanked her upright by the arm, his fingers digging into her bicep like talons. Next time, show some respect, he growled, shoving her back towards the driver's side door. He threw her registration onto the passenger seat. Get out of my sight. Alana's cheek throbbed, a metallic taste of blood in her mouth. Her meticulously constructed composure was fractured, not by fear, but by a rage so profound it felt like a physical force. Her CIA training, however, was a deeply ingrained armor. Through the searing pain and humiliation, her mind was a recording device. Officer Derek Slate. Badge number 714. Caucasian male, approximate 5 feet 11 inches, 220 pounds. Distinctive scar above left eyebrow, partially hidden by cap. Vehicle number 307. Every detail was seared into her memory. She didn't say a word. She watched him swagger back to his cruiser, the very air around him seeming to thicken with his arrogance. As his taillights receded into the oppressive darkness, Alana leaned against her car, her body trembling not from the cold, but from the aftershocks of the assault and the fury it had unleashed. She stooped, her fingers brushing the cold metal of her CIA badge lying on the gritty asphalt. Picking it up, she stared at the eagle, the shield, symbols of a power Slate couldn't comprehend, a devastating secret he had just unwittingly awakened. He thought he'd put another black woman in her place. He had no idea he'd just declared war on one of the agency's most formidable operatives. The bruises would fade. The humiliation would be metabolized into fuel. But the memory of Badge 714, and the system that allowed him to thrive, would be etched into her resolve. Cedar Grove, Michigan, was about to learn that some shadows fight back. The sting of the Michigan asphalt on Alana's cheek was a brutal echo from 2 decades past, a phantom pain that transported her from the lonely county road to the sweltering summer streets of Chicago's South Side, 2005. She was 16 then, all lanky limbs and fierce intelligence, eyes wide with the world's possibilities, yet already narrowed by its injustices. Jamal, her older brother by 3 years, was her hero. Quick with a laugh, quicker with a basketball, and gifted with a gentle soul that seemed out of place in their hardscrabble neighborhood. He was the one who dreamed of college, of engineering, of building bridges both literal and metaphorical. He was supposed to be their family's way out. The memory played in Alana's mind with the horrifying clarity of a recurring nightmare. A sun-drenched afternoon, kids playing double dutch on the sidewalk, the distant chime of an ice cream truck. Jamal, walking home from his summer job at the local library, a well-worn copy of Invisible Man tucked under his arm. Then, the sudden screech of tires, the slam of car doors, 2 white officers, faces set in grim masks of authority that brooked no argument. They'd accused Jamal of selling drugs. Alana, watching from their apartment window, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird, saw it all. Saw the confusion on Jamal's face, then the fear. Saw one officer distract him while the other, with a sleight of hand that would have been impressive in a less monstrous context, slipped a small plastic baggie into Jamal's backpack, which lay open on the sidewalk where it had fallen. "What's this, huh?" the officer had crowed, pulling out the planted evidence with a triumphant smirk. Jamal's denials were swallowed by the officer's aggressive shouts. Alana had raced downstairs, her mother close behind, their pleas, their protests, a useless rain against the stone wall of indifferent power. Jamal, cuffed and shoved into the back of the squad car, his eyes meeting Alana's for one devastating moment, a look of bewildered betrayal that would haunt her waking hours and fuel her darkest dreams. His subsequent imprisonment, despite a beleaguered public defender's best efforts, was a foregone conclusion. The system, designed to protect and serve, had instead consumed him, chewed him up, and spat him out into the maw of the carceral state. Jamal, the brilliant, gentle boy, became a statistic, another black life derailed by a system rotten from within. That day, something in 16-year-old Alana crystallized. The raw grief and impotent rage coalesced into a diamond-hard resolve. If the system was corrupt, she would learn its intricacies. If it preyed on the vulnerable, she would become strong. She devoured books on law, on criminology, on social justice. Her grades, already excellent, became flawless. She honed her mind into a weapon. Her linguistic genius, an uncanny ability to pick up languages and decipher patterns, emerged as her most formidable tool. By the time she was in college, she was fluent in 5 languages, her intellect a beacon that drew the attention of recruiters from various governmental agencies. It was the CIA, however, that saw the steel beneath the academic brilliance. They saw not just a linguist, but a strategist, someone who understood the subtle mechanics of power and deception. She was recruited not for foreign espionage, but for a more clandestine, more insidious battlefield, domestic counter-corruption. Her focus became the rot within, the places where American ideals fractured and failed. Her work was surgical, precise, conducted from the shadows. Her mentor, Carlos Mendez, a weathered, wise Puerto Rican intelligence veteran, had seen too many bright-eyed recruits burn out against the monolithic indifference of entrenched systems. His face, a roadmap of late nights and hard-won battles, was etched with a weary cynicism that Alana initially resisted but gradually came to understand. "You have the fire, Alana," he told her during one late-night debrief, the scent of stale coffee and classified documents thick in the air of his sparsely decorated Langley office. "And the mind. But remember this, the system protects its own. Always. You want to make a difference? You want to excise the cancer? You can't do it with a megaphone and a picket sign, not from where we stand. You work in the shadows. You gather the proof. You become the unseen blade that cuts the puppet strings. But never forget, even in the shadows, the system has eyes." His words were a constant hum beneath the surface of her operations. Work in the shadows. It was a doctrine she had lived by, a necessary evil, she told herself, to combat a greater one. She dismantled corrupt city councils, exposed bribery rings within federal agencies, always meticulously, always from behind the curtain. But Slate's assault, the raw, personal violation on that Michigan road, had shaken the foundations of her carefully constructed detachment. This wasn't an abstract target in a dossier. This was the same casual brutality that had stolen her brother's future, the same arrogant abuse of power. The shadows, Carlos had warned her, had eyes. Tonight, one of those eyes, belonging to Officer Derek Slate, had fixed on her. And in doing so, he had unwittingly dragged Alana Wright, the CIA operative, back into the raw, visceral fight of Alana Wright, the sister of Jamal. The memory of Jamal's face, that look of bewildered betrayal, superimposed itself onto the image of Slate's sneering contempt. The pain in her cheek was a fresh reminder. Her mission in Cedar Grove had just become intensely personal. The shadows were no longer enough. Back in her sterile, anonymous extended-stay hotel room on the outskirts of Cedar Grove, her temporary research outpost, Alana bypassed the university-provided laptop. Instead, she retrieved a sleek, hardened device from a hidden compartment in her luggage. This was her lifeline to Langley, to the formidable resources of the Central Intelligence Agency. The mission parameters were clear. Infiltrate Cedar Grove's law enforcement and municipal structures, identify and map suspected links to a burgeoning white supremacist network known as the Patriot Front Collective. Intelligence chatter suggested the PFC was using legitimate-seeming local organizations as fronts, possibly even leveraging elements within the police department for logistics, information, and protection. Officer Slate, with his documented history of racial bias, was initially a peripheral person of interest, a potential symptom of a deeper malaise. His assault had changed everything. It wasn't just a disruption of her cover, it was a personal affront that resonated with the deepest parts of her being. It was also a tactical error on his part, one she would exploit ruthlessly. With swift, practiced keystrokes, Alana initiated a secure connection. The file on Officer Derek Slate, previously a thin collection of public records and internal affairs summaries, began to expand at an exponential rate. She cross-referenced his financials, his known associates, his digital footprint. The agency's algorithms, designed to sift through mountains of data for whispers of treason and terror, were now focused on a small-town cop. The picture that emerged was uglier than she'd anticipated. Slate wasn't just a racist bully. He was a key player. His history of brutality was extensive, a litany of excessive force complaints, almost all of them dismissed or buried by internal reviews. But beneath the thuggery, there was a cunning avarice. Encrypted financial transactions, routed through a series of obscure online payment platforms, led to offshore accounts. These weren't the payoffs of a beat cop on the take. This was sophisticated money laundering, and the amounts correlated disturbingly with known seizures of narcotics that had mysteriously gone missing from the Cedar Grove PD evidence lockup. Slate wasn't just a brute. He was a conduit for the syndicate's drug money. As Alana delved deeper, another facet of her devastating secret came into play: her innate ability to see patterns others missed, a form of intellectual synesthesia where data points formed visual, almost tactile, connections in her mind. The PFC, the drug money, Slate's brutality, they weren't separate issues. They were interwoven threads in a single, venomous tapestry. Meanwhile, the small town of Cedar Grove was stirring. Alana, weighing the risks, had made a calculated decision. The body cam footage from Slate's cruiser would likely be lost or corrupted, but her car's discreetly installed, high-resolution dashcam, a standard precaution for any operative in the field, even one posing as a sociologist, had captured everything. Slate's unprovoked aggression, his snarling threats, the moment he slammed her against the hood. Through an encrypted, untraceable channel, she anonymously leaked a carefully edited segment of that footage, enough to show the assault but not enough to compromise her identity or ongoing investigation, to a local activist named Janine Harper. Janine, a black single mother whose fierce advocacy for social justice had made her a prominent, often inconvenient voice in Cedar Grove, was a force of nature. Alana had researched her as part of her initial environmental scan of the town. Janine worked 2 jobs to support her teenage son, Malik, yet still found time to organize, protest, and relentlessly challenge the town's complacent status quo. She was everything Alana might have become if the CIA hadn't offered a different, shadowed path to fight injustice. The leaked footage hit Cedar Grove like a thunderclap. Janine, recognizing the familiar script of police abuse, acted immediately. She disseminated the video through her networks, organized a press conference on the steps of the town hall, her voice ringing with righteous fury. "This is not an isolated incident," Janine declared, her image flickering on Alana's laptop screen as she monitored local news feeds. "This is a symptom of a disease that has infected our police department, a disease that targets black and brown bodies with impunity. We demand accountability. We demand justice for this anonymous woman, and for all the others who have suffered in silence." Protests erupted. Small at first, then growing as more citizens, shocked by the visual evidence of Slate's brutality, joined Janine's call. The Cedar Grove Police Department and its chief, a man named Bill Henderson who projected an avuncular, nothing to see here, demeanor, issued a bland statement about an ongoing internal investigation. Alana watched it all unfold from her hotel room, a ghost in the machine she was meticulously dismantling. Slate's assault had been a catalyst, not just for her, but for the community. He thought he was silencing a troublemaker. Instead, he had amplified a movement and brought the full, unseen weight of the CIA down upon his own head. The unmasking had begun, not just of Slate, but of the deeper corruption he represented. And Alana, the woman he dismissed, was pulling the strings. The threads Alana had begun to pull were leading her into an increasingly complex and dangerous web woven through the very fabric of Cedar Grove. Officer Slate was a venomous spider, but he wasn't the spinner. Her next call was to Mateo Rivera, her tech specialist back at Langley, a prodigy who could make ones and zeros sing and dance to his tune. Mateo, a young, fast-talking New Yorican whose brilliance was matched only by his irreverence for bureaucratic red tape, was Alana's digital eyes and ears. "Mateo, I need you to dive deeper into those shell corporations Slate's money is flowing through," Alana instructed, her voice low and urgent over the secure line. "Cross-reference beneficiary names, IP addresses, anything that links them to the Patriot Front Collective or other known hate groups." "You got it, boss?" Mateo's voice crackled back, a hint of excitement in his tone. "This is juicier than that senator's offshore rodeo last year. Give me a few hours and I'll have their digital underwear drawer spilled all over your screen." While Mateo worked his magic, a new, unexpected asset emerged from within the Cedar Grove Police Department itself. Officer Lisa Tran was a rookie, barely a year on the force. Vietnamese American, she was one of only a handful of officers of color in the predominantly white department. Alana's initial intelligence profile on Tran had painted her as idealistic, perhaps a little naive, but with a strong moral compass. The leaked footage of Slate's assault and the department's tepid response had clearly shaken her. Tran reached out through a carefully anonymized email routed through several servers, a clear indication she understood the risks. "I saw the video," the message read. "What happened to that woman? It's not right. There are things here, things I've seen, heard. Files that go missing. Internal affairs complaints that disappear. I don't know who you are or who she is, but if you're trying to expose something, I might be able to help." Alana, after verifying Tran's identity and assessing the potential risks, established a secure communication channel. Tran, disillusioned by the casual racism and corruption she'd witnessed, began to feed Alana internal documents, redacted incident reports that suddenly became unredacted, duty rosters that showed suspicious patterns of patrol and, most damningly, access logs to the evidence room that indicated unauthorized entries by Slate and another, more senior officer on nights when large drug seizures were processed. Lisa Tran was risking her career, possibly even her safety. She represented the flicker of conscience within a compromised system. Her courage fortified Alana's resolve. Mateo, true to his word, delivered. The shell company Slate's drug money was laundered through American Heartland Development LLC, was indeed a primary funding vehicle for the Patriot Front Collective. But the true bombshell was the name on the incorporation documents, the hidden hand guiding it all. Captain Richard Vaughn, Slate's direct commander and a decorated veteran of the Cedar Grove PD. Vaughn, a man who projected an image of stern but fair leadership, was the syndicate's mastermind, the weaver of the web. He was using drug money to fund a white supremacist organization, likely for ideological reasons and to consolidate his own power base within the town and beyond. The PFC, in turn, provided muscle and intimidation, helping to keep the drug operation secure. The revelation was sickening. The corruption wasn't just a few bad apples, it was rot at the core, reaching into the command structure itself. Cedar Grove PD wasn't just tolerating a racist cop, it was, at its highest levels, actively engaged in organized crime and domestic extremism. This was the devastating secret Alana was unearthing, far bigger than one rogue officer. As Alana was piecing this together, the situation in Cedar Grove escalated. Janine Harper's protests were gaining traction, drawing media attention from neighboring cities. The pressure was mounting on the city council and the police department. Vaughn, feeling the heat, decided to strike back, not at the anonymous woman from the video, but at the most visible symbol of the resistance. Janine. Janine's teenage son, Malik, a bright, artistically gifted young man with no prior record, was arrested. The charges were ludicrous: possession of a stolen bicycle and resisting arrest. The arresting officers, two of Slate's known cronies. It was a clear act of intimidation, a trumped-up charge designed to silence Janine, to break her spirit by threatening her most precious loved one. News of Malik's arrest spread like wildfire. The community, already simmering with discontent, exploded. What had been peaceful protests turned into angry demonstrations. Shouts of "Free Malik" and "No justice, no peace" echoed through the streets of Cedar Grove. The city, once deceptively placid, was now a tinderbox, ignited by the arrogance of a corrupt system and the courage of those who dared to challenge it. Alana watched the news reports, her heart aching for Janine and Malik. This was the system protecting its own, just as Carlos had warned. But now Alana wasn't just working in the shadows. The lines were blurring. Her mission to expose a network had become intertwined with a mother's fight for her son, with a community's cry for justice. The web was tightening, not just around Vaughn and Slate, but around everyone caught in its suffocating embrace. Alana knew she had to act, and soon, before the city tore itself apart, or before Vaughn's syndicate silenced all opposition permanently. The Cedar Grove Town Hall, usually a staid venue for mundane civic debates, buzzed with an electric tension. Every seat in the auditorium was filled with an overflow crowd spilling onto the steps outside, their faces illuminated by the harsh glare of news cameras. Tonight was a specially convened public forum on policing, a direct result of the unrest sparked by Slate's assault and Malik's arrest. Captain Richard Vaughn, looking impassive and authoritative in his dress uniform, sat at a long table on the stage, flanked by the police chief and the mayor, ready to deliver platitudes and deflections. He had no idea he was walking into Alana Wright's meticulously laid trap. Janine Harper, her voice hoarse but resolute, had just finished speaking, her words a raw, powerful indictment of the department's failures, her plea for her son's freedom hanging heavy in the air. The crowd had roared its approval. Now, the floor was open for public comment. A woman rose from the middle of the auditorium. Tall, composed, her features bearing the faint, fading yellow of a bruise on her cheekbone. It was Alana Wright, no longer the anonymous researcher, but a figure of quiet, formidable presence. A hushed murmur rippled through the crowd. Some recognized her from the grainy leaked footage. "Captain Vaughn," Alana began, her voice clear and steady, amplified by the microphone. "My name is Dr. Alana Wright. I am the woman Officer Slate assaulted on County Road 12 2 weeks ago." Vaughn's eyes, cold and assessing, met hers. A flicker of something: surprise? Annoyance? Crossed his face before his mask of calm composure snapped back into place. Ma'am, this is an ongoing internal investigation. I'm not here to talk about Officer Slate's thuggery, Captain, Alana interrupted, her gaze unwavering. I'm here to talk about yours. On a large screen behind the stage, previously displaying the town seal, an image suddenly flashed. The logo of American Heartland Development LLC. Gasps rippled through the audience. Mateo Rivera, working remotely, had gained access to the town hall's AV system. This shell corporation, Alana continued, her voice cutting through the stunned silence, has been the primary financial conduit for laundering proceeds from narcotics trafficking in this county. Narcotics that have a habit of disappearing from your department's evidence lockup. Captain. Vaughn's face paled visibly. The mayor looked aghast. Chief Henderson sputtered. The screen changed again, displaying complex flowcharts of financial transactions linking American Heartland Development to offshore accounts and then, crucially, to known funding streams for the Patriot Front Collective. This drug money, Captain Vaughn, has been systematically funneled to fund a white supremacist organization. An organization that promotes hatred, violence, and seeks to undermine the very fabric of communities like Cedar Grove. More images. Internal emails, bank statements, surveillance photos, discreetly obtained by Alana's CIA resources and Lisa Tran's courageous leaks, implicating Vaughn directly. His signature on incriminating documents. His presence at clandestine meetings with PFC leaders. Officer Slate wasn't just a rogue cop, was he, Captain? Alana pressed, her voice ringing with controlled fury. He was your bagman, your enforcer. And you, Captain Vaughn, are the architect of this corruption, a traitor not just to your badge, but to every citizen you swore to protect. The auditorium was in an uproar. Shouts of traitor and resign rained down from the crowd. Vaughn, his face a mask of disbelief and rage, started to rise, looking for an escape. At that precise moment, the side doors of the auditorium burst open. Stern-faced men and women in dark suits and tactical vests, clearly marked FBI, moved in with swift, practiced efficiency. Richard Vaughn, a lead agent announced, his voice booming over the chaos. You are under arrest for conspiracy, money laundering, and providing material support to a domestic terrorist organization. Slate, who had been lurking nervously at the back of the hall, tried to bolt. He didn't get far. 2 agents intercepted him, slamming him against a wall with a force that ironically mirrored his own favored tactic. Derek Slate, you're also under arrest. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. His snarl from that dark roadside, you're just another troublemaker, now seemed a pathetic whimper in the face of true, systemic justice. The badge he had used to oppress was now the symbol of his downfall, wielded by a higher authority he couldn't bully or corrupt. The arrests were swift, professional. The crowd watched, stunned, then erupted into a wave of cheers and applause. Janine Harper embraced Alana, tears streaming down her face. You did it, she whispered. You actually did it. In the days that followed, the full extent of Vaughn's web of corruption and extremism was laid bare by federal investigators. Malik Harper was released, all charges dropped, the trumped-up case collapsing under the weight of the department's disgrace. Janine's coalition, energized and emboldened, successfully lobbied for the establishment of a robust, independent civilian oversight board for the Cedar Grove Police Department, the first step in a long journey toward rebuilding trust. For Alana, the confrontation at the town hall was a turning point. She had stepped out of the shadows, not just as a CIA operative, but as herself, a woman demanding justice. The work was vital, but the methods, the detachment, had begun to chafe against the raw, personal experiences that had shaped her. The fight in Cedar Grove, standing alongside Janine, had reawakened something fundamental. A few weeks later, Alana sat across from Carlos Mendez in his familiar Langley office. She slid her resignation letter across his desk. Carlos read it, his expression unreadable for a long moment. Then a slow smile touched his lips. Took you long enough, he said, a hint of pride in his weary eyes. The shadows are a necessary place for some fights, Alana. But some lights can only be lit out in the open. What will you do? I'm starting a non-profit, Alana said, a new sense of purpose thrumming within her. With Janine Harper. We're calling it the Forensic Accountability Initiative. We'll train marginalized youth, kids from communities like the one I grew up in, like Malik, in investigative techniques, data analysis, legal advocacy. Give them the tools to hold power accountable, to fight the system from the ground up. Carlos nodded slowly. Turning your pain into power. Jamal would be proud. The story closes months later in a revitalized Cedar Grove. The Patriot Front Collective was in disarray, its leadership arrested, its funding dried up. The police department was undergoing a painful but necessary overhaul. On the side of the community center where Janine Harper now ran her expanded advocacy programs, a vibrant mural was taking shape. Malik Harper, his artistic talent now a beacon of hope rather than a silent rebellion, was the lead artist. The mural depicted two figures. One, a young man with a kind smile and intelligent eyes, holding a book, Jamal. Beside him, a woman, strong and resolute, her gaze fixed on the horizon, Alana. Beneath them, bold letters proclaimed, "The shadows can't hide us anymore." It was a testament to collective memory, to the resilience of a community that had faced down its demons, and to the two siblings whose lives, though separated by tragedy and time, had converged in the fight for justice. Alana stood watching Malik paint, the autumn sun warm on her face. The road ahead was long, the fight far from over. But here, in the quiet after the storm, Alana realized light wasn't given, it was seized by those brave enough to spark it. Thank you for watching Alana's fight for justice. If her story of courage and resilience moved you, please show your support. Hit like, share this powerful message with your friends, and subscribe for more stories that ignite change. Let us know in the comments, what part shocked you most?